Oh, but I am not hearing you. I'm hearing myself. So we're getting there.
We're getting there. We're getting there. We're
Oh.
here. Are we here? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
There we go.
There
we are.
We did a noob thing and unmuted us both.
All good.
Anyway, we are here. Thank you so much for joining me. I am going to upgrade you to co-host because I think you being a guest on the show is not going to work for me because you're going to be on every show with me on this one. So is that okay with you?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
that doesn't make things awful, but
so you now have no choice but to be at every single one.
That's right. Somehow I closed the StreamYard window, and yet I'm still in the stream. So I'm just not going to mess with anything here right now.
Okay, no problem.
I'm just hands off my computer, and we're live, and I am all yours. Here we are.
Here we are.
Hey, everybody.
Well, Cole, we do the Scientology show on a Saturday. As Chris also has a schedule of his own that he needs to maintain, and as I believe it's family time on a Sunday, so I don't want to mess with that. And so I keep to the Saturdays for the Scientology one. So no, it's not Sunday. Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
That's right.
And normally this is this is going to be a fun stream. This is going to be, and not just a fun stream, it's going to be informative. And, I've been looking forward to the stream because the 8 dynamics of Scientology is a fascinating one. And I've basically just binge listened to the Scientology Fair Game stream, podcast, and it's fascinating. And there's just so much information that just you have to listen to it more than once. And there were some amazing questions that came out of, for me at least, that I would like to ask. And so I think that we are going to welcome Chris, and I hope that you've been having a good month, and I hope your move was good as well. I hope you had no hiccups and such, and no lost furniture and stolen furniture. Like I've heard some stories.
It was fine. It was fine. The hardest part about the move was that we moved to the 3rd floor of an apartment building that does not have an elevator. And I did not really think through the consequences of that when we signed the lease here. Like, oh yeah, we'll work it out. We'll get up those stairs. And after, dragging, probably 100 moving boxes up here and couches and everything, that was a little tiring.
I can only imagine. I really can only imagine. I mean, just even moving to, I'm glad I'm on the bottom floor because I have a house on top of me because I'm in a duplex. I'm glad I got the bottom floor and I looked at houses that were on the 2nd floor, and I'm so glad I didn't take them. The bottom floor is the best floor.
I will never, ever do this again. This is one of those live and learn sort of things. So, and it's funny because I'm older now, right? I'm in my 50s. And so, which is not like an old man or something, but when you, in your memory, you harken back to the, in 20s and 30s when you can move around and do things and it wasn't a problem. And you think, oh yeah, it's not gonna be a problem. This is gonna be easy. I've done this before.
Yes.
It's like, no, you get older and there are reasons why we let the young people do this crap, So, anyway.
So you won't be moving for the next 10 or so years.
Never. I think we're going to be pretty happy here for a little while.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. And I'm glad there were no hiccups with the move besides lugging big furniture up and down.
No. And it's always fun because, I get to remake my studio and remake my living space and, and we're working things out. And then you buy new stuff and stick it up, all that kind of fun stuff. So it's been a lot more fun than not. I don't mean to make it sound all awful, but moving is moving.
And it's stressful. Moving is very, very stressful.
Yes, exactly. Apparently the third most stressful thing we do, according to one list I saw.
That's fascinating. I didn't hear that one, but that's very fascinating.
Yeah.
Right. So tonight we're going to tackle the 8 dynamics of Scientology. And it's not really too much about the as far as I don't know, that's why I want to know about it. But as far as I can tell, there's not really a lot of abuses happening when it comes to the 8 dynamics. But I think if we delve deep into it, maybe there will be something that we can pick up. And I mean, I've got 2 questions that for me see that there is. But I think I want to delve into them and understand them, because I know in the aftermath, they pick on a few of them, or Leah mentions a couple of them, but she doesn't mention all of them, and they don't go through it because it's got nothing to do with the aftermath of Scientology. So I wanted to just delve a bit of it into the 8 dynamics and understand why there are 8 of them to begin with.
Sure.
We don't have to go through each and every single one individually, because we'll be here for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. We'll be here forever to go through each of them. Unless you can, simplify it, into something, into bite-sized packages.
Yeah, which I think I can do.
Awesome.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at this, because it is kind of interesting stuff. It's and it is absolutely used. This is a philosophical principle in Scientology, the 8 dynamics, and it is used absolutely in very abusive ways, and I'm sure we can talk about how that is. First off, the word dynamic in this sense, or the dynamics, is just a made-up word in Scientology. It doesn't have anything to do with engineering or physics or anything like where you would use the word dynamics in a scientific sense. Hubbard using it as in a sense of a force or an energy or a movement in a particular direction. That's kind of the connotation or the idea of a dynamic. It is a way in which a spiritual entity, or a thetan in Scientology, that's the word they use, right?
Yes.
The way that a thetan moves through life. It's a way that a thetan considers or categorizes the actions and activities of life, is through these artificial categories called the dynamics. And there are 8 of these categories. And basically, Hubbard said, originally there were 4. And then it expanded in Scientology to 8. When Hubbard published the book Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health in 1950, it was 4 dynamics. So I think it took 2 years or so, and then it became 8. It's basically a matter of compartmentalizing life from yourself if you imagine this, or if you can kind of get the image of concentric circles, you'll have the right idea of what the dynamics represent. With yourself smack in the middle of these concentric circles. There's 8 of them. You're in the middle. You exist as yourself going through life. That is you as yourself.
Yes.
The idea is that is the first dynamic. The first point of entry to survival is you surviving as you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Your identity, your personality, your mind, your intimate personal possessions, your body, all of these things would be encapsulated by what we call the first dynamic. So if I was saying that I was going out and taking a walk to clear my head or calm down, or just take in the sights, that would be a first dynamic activity.
Yes.
It's me, myself, doing something for me, myself. I'm not involving anybody else, really.
Yes.
Okay, so that's your first dynamic. And it goes out from there in spheres of influence. So your second dynamic is...
wait, Chris, before we carry on to the second dynamic, I just have 2 questions related to the first dynamic. With regards to the first dynamic, I was listening to Scientology Fair Game, and they were talking about being selfish in Scientology.
Yep.
Can we talk about being selfish in Scientology and what that means and how it relates to the first dynamic?
Yeah, absolutely. Selfishness in Scientology would be framed as or talked about as being 1D oriented.
Mm.
First dynamic, 1D, right?
Yes,
the
yes.
dynamic is 2D. This is how they refer to these things. They'll say, "Oh, he's so 1D," or "He's so 1D oriented," or he's just all about his first dynamic.
Yes.
This is how you might say that in Scientologies.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Same concept: selfish, self-centered, egotistical. Very 1D oriented, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of how it's talked about or thought about, at least at that level, on that sense.
Yes, but so being selfish in Scientology is not a good thing.
Well, if it's at the expense of Scientology, it's not. I mean, ultimately, Scientology's entire goal and purpose is extremely self-centered and egotistical and selfish. But that's not how they think of themselves or see themselves, even though that, objectively speaking.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in essence, having a woman having a baby, you're not being on post, you're daydreaming, you're not, you're not reaching your goals, you're not doing the work properly, is in Scientology's idea of you being selfish and you're not with the team.
Yes, that's right. And in fact, that's one of the ways that this gets corrupted, right? Because we talked about how does this get abusive? Well, it gets abusive when you start knocking the priorities around amongst different dynamics. And we can talk about that after we kind of lay them all out so people understand what we're talking about. But yeah. So
I just want to let the chat know, if they have any questions at all about any of the dynamics, please feel welcome to ask them. And then we can discuss those as well. I think just so also the chat can understand or people can understand for themselves, if they have a question, then they can at least understand from their point of view as well. Because you being in Scientology, you understand a point of view. Me being a not in, which is now here is the term for a person that understands Scientology and studies Scientology but has never been in. Right. So for me being a never in, I see a difference to you, but different to someone that's never known about Scientology or just has heard about it.
Of course.
So if they have any questions, guys, you're more than welcome to ask. Then my second question is, if you take Scientology as an entity, one entity, are they not breaking the rules of the 8 dynamics and only thinking of themselves?
No, not just by the fact of existing. Maybe I'm not.
I mean, they don't care about anyone but themselves.
Oh, sure. See, the thing is, at the end of the day, that doesn't really work out very practically, right? Because none of us live in a vacuum, so it doesn't really work out that we, don't care about anybody else but ourselves, kind of thing. Because you always have to at least reach out a little bit to communicate to other people. Mm-hmm. But I will say, of course, that Scientology is very much about its own importance.
Yes.
Right, and they have a priority problem. They have a perspective problem. I'll say that.
So, in essence of the 8 dynamics, and the first dynamic being self, and being selfish is bad in Scientology. Them just thinking about themselves as an entity and not thinking about the rest of the dynamics is for me. It feels like they're breaking their own rule on the self.
Well, they are. And let's be clear that because I realize as I'm sitting here laying this out, that this could be easily misunderstood. So the first dynamic that we talked about or defined is an individual person. It's an individual thetan. It's not a group, right?
Okay.
The third dynamic is groups.
Yes. So
Scientology, the Church of Scientology, is a third dynamic. It's not a first dynamic. Mm-hmm. The only thing that can have and is, manifest across dynamics is a spiritual entity, not a corporation or a church or a group or an organization. This is all from the point of view of an individual.
Yes. Okay.
So the center of the concentric circles is always a person.
Yes. Guys, if you want to know what when we talk about a circle, the dynamic circle, you just look up the 8 dynamics of Scientology and you will find images of what it actually looks like. It's just basically a circle within a circle within a circle 8 times. That's basically what it is. It's basically like a water ripple. That's what it really looks like. Or just circles around each other.
That's right.
Okay, so the second dynamic is creativity.
Yeah, that definition came later. I don't know that that's even a Hubbard definition, actually.
Well, that's in the Scientology website that I'm looking at right now.
I know. And it's very possible that that is not a Hubbard definition, because that definition, I remember exactly precisely when that definition came out and where it came from, and it you know, I don't know that it was Hubbard. Point being that the second dynamic is classically and always thought of as sex and family and the rearing of children. It's a 3-part thing. That is the second dynamic, okay? So you have everything basically connected with a family, your parents, your extended family. That's second dynamic.
It's kind of contradictory.
Contradictory in what way?
Yes. So because you're not, how it used to be, I don't know if it's apparently it's changed now. You weren't allowed to have kids, or you're not allowed to have kids anymore in the Sea Org.
Oh yeah, no. The fact that you're not allowed to have children doesn't contradict the fact that the second dynamic exists for you.
Okay.
It's still there. It's always there. Let me clarify something about this dynamic. Sure. It's not just a static sort of the conditions of your life. The dynamics are an urge that is within you to survive along these various categories or paths. It's how you are. It's the impulses or drives that make you who you are. That's what the dynamics are. So it's a thrust, or it's a force, it's a drive, it's an impulse that you have. So you're going to have the impulse while you're in a body to have sex and to make kids, because that's a body impulse. The bodies want that, right? And remember that in Scientology, it's dualism. The body and the mind and the spirit, they're different things. So the body has its own impulses, but this is spiritually speaking too. You as a thetan, you as a spirit, have this drive or this impulse to have a family, have siblings, have parents, right? Have sex so as to create more bodies to occupy in future generations. If you don't have the mechanism of sex, you don't have more bodies. So, you know, you're not going to have any more bodies to occupy in future lives. So this is a compulsion that people have, according to Hubbard. Again, this is all according to Hubbard. I don't subscribe to any of this crap. I don't think this is actually true, but this is how Hubbard categorizes life, right? So anyway, just wanted to clarify that point, because it's what the Sea Org guys do is they acknowledge that they have this impulse to have kids, and then they say, but I'm going to sublimate that into the creativity of my job and my post. And in fact, I believe that's why that definition was created, was to give Sea Org members an out so that they wouldn't see that there was a contradiction in the rules of no kids and Hubbard saying, you know, have a family, have kids, have a life, right?
Okay, I see.
You're not entirely off base that these two things do kind of clash a little bit.
Yeah.
But if we reconcile it by saying, oh, no, it's not sex. Hubbard said it was sex, but no, it's really just creativity, see? that mixes things up and makes it a little bit more confusing. So
yes. I mean, I've got the site open now, just so I've, you know, and it says creativity is making things for the future, and the second dynamic includes any creativity.
Yep.
The second dynamic contains the family unit and raising children, as well as anything that can be categorized as a family activity.
That's
it
right.
also indicate incidentally. Today's been a long day. I'm so sorry, guys.
Don't worry about it. You're doing fine.
It includes sex as a mechanism to compel future survival. So, but I mean, I don't know why my brain keeps going back to this, but you know, if looking at, if they were talking about family, the family unit, why are they breaking up families with disconnection?
Well, that's exactly the reason why Scientologists themselves can see that it's a destructive activity, because it's not okay to be breaking up families and stuff, right? But on the other hand, from the Scientologist point of view, and this is only reason why I bring this up, just to understand where they're coming from, so that you can kind of deal with them more easily. I'm not saying this stuff is apologetics, right? I'm not trying to justify their positions or their thinking, but I am trying to offer an understanding of their positions so that we can deal with them more effectively. And so when I say from their point of view, they're not breaking up families. They're getting rid of toxic elements in the family that are hurting things and that are impeding the survival of the family unit, right? Because you can have, because that's what a suppressive person and the whole breakup and all of that they do, the shunning and the disconnection, that's all predicated, that's all based on this idea that there's a toxic personality there. The suppressive person is a bad guy.
Yes.
Right? And if that were true, then it would be a correct thing to do to break up the family. Because if you got some malignant narcissist terrorizing his wife and kids or something, that's not good. That's not a good family unit. That's a messed up second dynamic.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the kids are going to have a messed up second dynamic, and the wife is going to have a messed up second dynamic, and they're not happy, right? And so Scientology goes, well, get this toxic element out of your life. And yeah, it busts up your second dynamic for now, but you can go create another one without the malignant narcissist, SP, horrible person, right? That's how they see it.
Yes.
So, you know, of how we rationalize this crap, right? But at the end of the day, the toxic personalities that Scientology labels as toxic aren't that. You know, they're just simply anti-Scientology. And in the mind of a Scientologist, if you're anti-Scientology, you are a toxic personality. So you need to be gotten rid of.
It makes sense. If you, and this is why I'm so glad that you were able to talk to us about this, because you're talking to me from an insider's point of view as well, because I mean, you were obviously there, so you can explain to me or the people listening what it means on the inside, what they feel, what they see it as, and then you can also tell me what it looks like on the outside, because now you've been in both, you've been in and you've been out, and then you can understand both. I'm just coming in from a never in, and this is what it looks like, because I know Scientology is poisonous and all of these things, and I don't see the inside, and a lot of people in the chat will also not see the inside. Right. So, and this is why I'm so glad we can have this discussion, because we just see, evil cult, do away with. That's whatever right. It means, do away with it. But there are good people in Scientology that don't know any better, especially kids that were brought up into it. Like yourself, you know, if you didn't leave, you wouldn't have known better. And you would have still been in Scientology doing what you normally do, or what you're ever supposed to do. So this is intense already. I really feel overwhelmed. And we're only on the second dynamic.
Okay, well, I hope I'm not an information overload or something. If I am, I can pull back a little bit on something.
I'll have to just go and rewatch it, and so will everybody else. It's fine.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, it's such a goddamn big subject. There's just so much to it, you know. And I'm trying to keep it simple. It's anyway. It's a process for both of us here.
Maybe what we should do is actually do a video just on each dynamic to break it down a bit more.
Well, I did do a video on all the dynamics. I have broken this stuff down before.
Okay, so what I'll do is I will put it in the description after the stream. Cool. I'll go get it and I'll put it into the description, and everybody can go watch that instead. Cool. There we go.
Not instead.
Instead of me making a video, there's already one made. don't need to do all the work again. It's already done.
Okay, fair
I
enough.
don't mind sending all the views to you because I think it's worth it.
All
Anyway, so the third dynamic is group survival. So that's just group, and that's where I got confused between Scientology as a single unit when they're actually a group, and their survival is to keep growing, but it's not happening because they're not having more kids because people don't want to get in. Sea Org members are not allowed to have kids, so there's no new kids coming into the Sea Org, and there we go. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
But the public are allowed to have kids, but a lot of the kids are now on the internet. They see what's happening, and they're not getting into Scientology.
Correct.
Because of videos like yours and all of that.
That is correct. However, their number one line for new recruitment these days seems to be second gen, the or third or fourth gen Scientologists. So some of those kids are getting sucked up into it still.
Yes, that's why I said some kids.
Yeah, it's not totally the case right now yet that all the kids are fleeing the ship, right? A lot of them are on board, like I was. They're raised with it. They're around it all the time. They know a bunch of Scientologists, so it's totally normalized for them. And then somebody sits them down and actually does the talk and recruits them, hardcore to join staff or join the Sea Org, and they do. And that still happens all the time in that world.
Yes, just watching it and watching the aftermath and listening to second and third gen talking about how they were recruited. I feel so bad for these kids now, adults obviously, but it's heartbreaking. It's like you can't leave this room until you sign this billion-year contract. Yeah. And anybody would say, but hang on, that's kidnapping. Or it's, there's a word for it. Being held about, without my consent. I'm not too sure. There's a word for it.
Imprisonment.
False imprisonment. That's it. That's it. And you're like, but the FBI is isn't anybody from the FBI watching these episodes? Isn't anybody from the CIA watching any of these episodes? From any police, any county police? Is no one of authority watching these episodes in any country, in anyone of watching and see what's happening, even in my own country? Scientology is not a big threat in this country as it is in the US, as it is for Clearwater. Scientology, I know there's a church just up, like 10 minutes from me. And I was devastated to find that out, but whatever. They're not a big threat that I know of to my town in South Africa. They're not a big threat in majority of the countries. I know in Australia they were, because they've just had a knock-on where there was a murder or a death. Sorry, not a murder, a death that happened. So there was a big controversy happening there. Yep. That was apparently leaked to Leah Remini's show for some reason, but that's Scientology trying to find any reason for whatever happens. Whatever happens in their church is Leah Remini's fault.
Right.
But it's not a big problem here as it is in the US. And I know that in some town or some cities it's not a big threat as it is in Clearwater. And, but it's still a big threat, regardless of how quiet they are in the town. It's still a big threat.
Well, it can be. It certainly can be. And a friend of mine who's actually running for city council this year, or will be, for Clearwater, has been trying to, Aaron Smith-Levin, has been trying to, not downplay, but give the truth about Scientology's actual power and threat in Clearwater, and how actually negligible it can be or is when the rubber meets the road. But they have a reputation, and they have all these decades of reputation of stalking and harassment and following you and making your life awful. And don't get me wrong, if they target you as an individual, they do have the ability to make your life really rough. They do have the money and time and resources to do that.
Yes.
What they lack is competency and purpose and direction. You know, it's all over. They're all over the place because David Miscavige is all over the place because he's nuts. And he's the guy who runs the whole show. So, I mean, if we're really going to talk turkey about it, then it's really not this looming threat, Scientology. It's just way too tiny for that, you know. But it is a great microcosm to look at the bigger picture problems of much larger groups that pose a significant threat, both religious and non-religious. So I'm not trying to defang Scientology at all. I'm just trying to put it in proper perspective.
Yes.
You know, it's a pipsqueak little group, and it is a money-making scam, and all they're interested in is taking money from you. You know, and they use these writings and methods from Hubbard to do that. And these are psychologically damaging things, you know, and that's basically how that works. Anyway, I'm sorry I went on a whole roll there, but
no, go for it.
Yeah.
I sometimes I'm such a loss for words when it comes to Scientology. I mean, I've got so much happening in my head, and sometimes I'm so overwhelmed by the entire thought of Scientology and what kind of group it is, the group itself, and to go for me to think about their survival, they're missing the mark completely. The way to get people in, they're missing the mark completely.
Yes, they are.
I mean, if you look at the Catholic Church and the controversy they have been in with their bishops and altar boys and their priests and such, you don't see the Catholic Church trying to sue every Tom, Dick, and Harry, you know, and people are still joining the Catholic Church, you know.
I mean, it is a dwindling membership situation there, as I understand it. But yeah, it's certainly not as toxic in the public eye as Scientology is.
Yes,
that's for sure.
But even if the numbers are so low,
Catholic Church is not in good light right now.
No, but they've still got more joining yearly than Scientology does.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And by percentages too, not just numbers, because the Catholic Church is orders of magnitude larger than Scientology. But percentages wise, you're absolutely right, I'm sure.
Yes. So they're missing, for their own survival, they're missing the mark completely by trying to mark everyone as, you know, like yourself, you have your own, you know, who is Chris Shelton, you have your own 300 websites about who you apparently are, how much of a bad person you are,
right?
Whatever you've done according to them, and what apparently was in your auditing files, you know, and they're the ones going after everyone that says one little bad word about them.
That's right.
If I can quickly just digress quickly, myself and another creator, Conspiracy Cats or Baldy Cats, on Baldy Cat channel, it's the same person. We did a video, a 2-part video on Scientology, and the comments on these videos, on mine and his included, it was either great knowing you, or just watch out for fair game, or they're now going to stalk you. And those were the comments by people in our comments section of both our videos. And my response was, I'm a small channel, they have bigger fish to fry than me.
That's right.
And I know I'm going off on a tangent and getting off the whole group survival, but because of what they do to people that talk bad about their channel or about their so-called religion, that is just causing problems for them on do I really want to get into a church that attacks everyone? You know, do I want to get into a group that attacks everyone? Because if I get in and I don't like it, and I say something bad, they're going to attack me. I don't want to get into that. So they're hindering their own survival.
That's exactly right. On an individual level, that's exactly what they're doing. Unfortunately, and this is the work that we're doing, you know, trying to educate the public out there, because most people don't know about this, or they don't think too far into the future as far as those kind of consequences, right? I mean, we see this over and over again, right? People are really bad at thinking through the consequences of things, and so they get suckered into this stuff thinking there'll be an exception, or just completely unaware of the controversy in the first place.
Yeah.
That's why continually talking about this, putting it out there, reminding people, that's the mission, because it's a constant refrain. You got to constantly put it out there that these groups are out there, and they prey on people on purpose. That is their survival. That is how they get along in the world, is they prey on people. And they're not good. You know, they're not constructive or helpful.
And that is my goal for the show.
Yeah.
Is to educate people and educate myself as well, because as much as I think I know, I have no idea. I'm learning so much just even from listening to a podcast. I learn so much whenever you put out a new video. You know, so I learn a lot from Erin. I learn a lot from Karen. I just even learn a lot from the Aftermath group on Facebook.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, sometimes there's funny things out on that group, and sometimes there's serious stuff. And I just want to absorb as much as I can. So when someone comes to me and say, I'm looking into Scientology, I'm like, whoa, let me sit you down and just tell you a few small things.
Yeah, exactly.
And then make up your mind.
Exactly.
You know, like I said, my goal is if I can save one person from getting into Scientology and ruining their entire life, I'm a happy woman. You know, if that's what they want to do, and if they carry on afterwards, then that's their own prerogative. And I've done what I felt I could do. I can only lead a person to the door, and say, here, you know, or lead them to the woods and say, you know, if you want to drink the Kool-Aid, here's the Kool-Aid. But, you know, after you've drunk the Kool-Aid, I can't help you anymore because you've drunk the Kool-Aid. I can still give you ideas and tell you, here's what's happening, but the Kool-Aid is going to tell you it's not true. So, right, let's get on to the fourth dynamic, I beg your pardon, which is species.
Yeah, actually, mankind. That's right, or species. Okay, so we did cover that the second dynamic is family and sex, and third dynamic is groups, right? So groups, any group you're part of, your job, the sports club, anything, right? From your point of view, any groups you're part of is your third dynamic. The overall species you're part of is your fourth dynamic. So you can see that these concentric circles are getting bigger and bigger as they widen out. They become larger spheres of activity. All of mankind includes every single person on planet Earth. That's
and in the space station.
What's that?
And in the space station.
That's right. Actually, that's exactly right. Every single human being in the universe. So that's the fourth dynamic. And Scientology talks about and pushes fourth dynamic buttons all the time. Saving mankind, saving humanity, right? We fight for the fourth dynamic. L. Ron Hubbard referred to, I don't know if I even want to say this, get on a whole nother explanatory thing. Anyway, Hubbard talked about how the fourth dynamic itself has issues and problems and stressors, and that by addressing each individual, we are actually helping to address this larger fourth dynamic problem that exists on planet Earth, right? When you look at the problems of illiteracy, disease, drugs, war, famine. I mean, these are fourth dynamic problems. They're not isolated to countries or nationalities or races. They are they affect all of us. And so this is where this is the dynamic where Scientology gets a lot of traction with its members, because they push very hard on fourth dynamic issues and like I said, buttons, and they get a lot of money by saying that they are doing programs and efforts to try to address these fourth dynamic ruins or these fourth dynamic problems. And they get a lot of money from rich Scientologists who want these problems solved and think that Scientology is the group that's going to do it. So so the fourth dynamic is kind of a bigger thing in Scientology than you might imagine, whereas in the rest of the world, you know, most people don't think about humanity as a whole very often. I think about it all the time. Most people don't. You know, they really are very first dynamic oriented in that regard, right? They really suck into the first, maybe the second dynamic. And that's about as far as their thinking really goes. You know, they suffer through having a job, their third dynamic. And maybe they, you know, go play on a sports team or something. And that's about the extent of their third dynamic activities, right? And they don't really think beyond that. So Scientologists kind of amp themselves up and pride themselves on, well, we're aware of the fourth dynamic and how important that is, and how we need to be acting on that dynamic too, and not just ignoring it or pretending it doesn't exist.
Yes. It's, and I think a lot of religions, you know, are on the save humanity bandwagon. You know.
Yeah, some are more so than others. I really want to stress this one with Scientology, because it's more than you think. It's a lot. They push this a lot in that group.
And now the question is, are they really doing it?
Well, they are really doing it, but they're really doing it so that they bring in the money to their coffers. They don't actually go out and do anything effective to really make any difference on the fourth dynamic. They just talk about it. But the thing I wanted to stress here, since we're talking about this, is that this is something that they talk about a lot. And other groups might give it some, a little bit of attention, you know, throw some words in that general direction. But it's from my experience and from what I see, I don't see a whole lot of groups or activities operating on a mankind level. And I think that's part of the problem with why we're seeing so much difficulty with getting people to give a shit about climate change.
Yes.
For example, and I'm not going to go on a soapbox about that. It's a big subject. But I think that people's awareness and willingness to consider that they are part of the human race, the human species, is fairly limited these days. We're so divided. We're so, you know, cloistered off in our little echo chambers that we lack an awareness of this. And I'm not trying to, you know, pimp Scientology as though they're more aware of this. They're running a con using it. So they're not any more aware of this than anybody else as far as that goes. But at least lip service. That's the expression I was looking for earlier. They give it a lot of lip service, and they get a lot of financial traction from that.
Yeah.
You know, other groups they won't go out on a limb and talk about how they're saving mankind, because it sounds ridiculous.
You can't save mankind because mankind doesn't want to be saved.
That's exactly right. But the whole time I was in Scientology, I did not think that way at all. I thought that's exactly what we were doing. So that so it's a big deal in Scientology. That's why I wanted to stress that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're halfway through the dynamic. So I just want to thank any more people that have popped in and thank everyone. But again, if you guys have any more questions, please don't be afraid to ask. I'm sure that we can, one of us can answer your question. I'm sure Chris can answer it better than I can. But if you guys do have questions, or if you're just listening as if it's a podcast, that's fine with me. It's awesome that you guys are here, and I thank every single one of you. Right, so the fifth dynamic, which I understand it now. When I first read it, I'm like, but isn't that the same thing? Which is life forms. I'm like, isn't that the same thing? But then I realized that the life forms is everything that's not human. So that's your plants and animals and such. So when I read, I'm like, but hey, and then I read the actual, the description that says this is the urge to survive as a life form. And with the help of life forms such as animals, birds, insects, fish, and vegetation, this includes all living things, whether animal or vegetables, anything directly and intimately motivated by life. It is the effort to survive for any and every form of life. It is the interest in life as such.
Correct.
Okay, so everything, basically, as everything is under humanity as a human, because it's apparently we're on the top of the food chain. So anything under that is considered life form.
Well, let's be clear. Actually, this would also include any life on an interstellar basis.
Yes, of course, because yes, of course.
Yeah, like all of life. That's the fifth dynamic. Everything that is alive falls under the fifth dynamic. So plants, animals, microbes, bacteria, anything that we call life, fifth dynamic. And Hubbard's assertion there, as you read, is that there is this impulse or this direction we have within us that we want the fifth dynamic to survive. We want life to survive, and that's what the fifth dynamic is supposed to encapsulate. And
that includes every other alien civilization that he believes is out there.
That's right.
Or believed that is out there.
Correct.
I just thought of something quickly as you mentioned, Hubbard. I had a commenter naming himself L. Ron Hubbard, and he said, "Hello from Alpha Centauri."
Right.
I found that quite funny, and I hearted it immediately. It was actually quite hilarious. But anyway, so. In terms of Scientology and life forms, how are they keeping up with that dynamic? How do they practice that dynamic? If there is a practice,
they talk about their pets. Yeah, I mean, they really don't get into it much. Some Scientologists have progressive views on vegetarianism or diet. They might push in that direction. Saving animals and stuff, not eating meat. That would be a fifth dynamic type activity, right? Of course, your pets, your animals, any kind of animals that you're involved with, going to the zoo. I mean, that's fifth dynamic. Having plants in your house. I mean, that's fifth dynamic. So they kind of, efforts in that direction, not really a whole lot more or less than anybody else. I'd say Scientologists skew average on just about every metric you'd pull up as far as animals and stuff go. Sea Org members don't get pets and stuff, but public Scientologists and staff do.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then how would a Sea Org member if you want to call it practice the fifth dynamic, how would they? I mean,
how is their fifth dynamic?
With a Sea Org member, yes.
Yeah, I should say I knew one or two Sea Org members who had birds, but that was few and far between because they're damn noisy. They just kind of don't. I mean, they don't really get into it much, and it's again one of those sort of things that you're sacrificing for the greater good. Because I think now is probably a good time to bring up that the equation that Scientologists operate on, the way they think about making decisions in their lives, is on the formula of the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics. Okay, that's the exact formula Hubbard wrote, is you make decisions, the most ethical decisions you can make are those decisions which are going to produce the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics, or conversely, the least harm for the least number of dynamics. Right? If you have to do something bad, minimize it so it's only contained, say, on one dynamic or two dynamics or something, right? If you have a choice or an option or a power of, to change it. So this is how Scientologists think about ethics. is greatest good for greatest number of dynamics. And the way that this gets messed up, of course, is one, from a human perspective, from a first dynamic human perspective, you can't imagine all the things that are going to affect, what this action is going to have across every dynamic. I mean, give me a break. How can you know what your decision-making process is going to affect with animals 2 states over? I don't know. Maybe there will be an effect. Maybe there won't. I can't even tell, right? So it's a little wonky as far as trying to really run that formula through. But Scientologists kind of rough it. Well, is this going to help me or hurt me? What's this going to be like for my family? What about my group? What about my job? They kind of run it through this way and sort of think it through that way. But that's ethics in Scientology.
Sorry, Clive Wells, he says, I grew up in ethics. I mean, Essex.
Nice, Clive.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
let me throw another thing out there at you, too, on this.
Yes.
The third dynamic of Scientology is everything. So while they will claim that they are making decisions based on the greatest good for greatest number of dynamics, Scientology is always raised in that equation to be the most important thing there is. Mm-hmm. So with that added foot on the scale, so to speak, every decision a Scientologist makes based on that thinking is going to skew towards Scientology's interests first.
Of course.
Their interests, their family's interests, their job's interests second. Mm-hmm. And I'm only kind of talking this way or stressing this because this is where it gets messed up. This is where Scientologists' heads get really screwed up. Is Scientology is the most important thing in the universe, so it ends up that there's this double bind that is created. Of you're supposed to have this rule of greatest good for greatest number, and that's how you make your decisions, and that's ethical decision making. But
Scientology comes first.
That's right. And in fact, Hubbard specifically wrote, Scientology is the one thing senior to life itself. Because, he said, because it explains all of life. So he raises it on this dais, this artificial pedestal. And so every decision you make ends up being skewed and biased towards Scientology. And that's why Scientologists go bankrupt and give over their kids and give over their life and all this other crap is because of this skewed thinking on the dynamics. And that's actually a point I really wanted to make today in doing this show. Because I think it's one of the most damaging things Scientology does to people is it screws up their priorities and it uses these dynamics to do it.
Yes, and maybe that's why I asked the question about Scientology being an entity and the self dynamic.
Yep.
And they're only thinking of themselves. And with that, breaking the rules of the dynamics and the betterment or the greater good for the greatest number of dynamics. That's why I had the idea that they were breaking that first rule of the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics. They're not even accounting for the other dynamics. If you think of Scientology as one entity, as one self, they're breaking all the other rules or all the other dynamics. They're not thinking about the other dynamics. If they're only considering themselves, if they are, Scientology first, everything else second, then they're breaking the whole dynamic. Then they're breaking the whole dynamic rule.
Yeah, I mean, basically, but I think we needed to clarify what these dynamics were in order to make that clear, right? Because it is confusing. It can be confusing. These are not clear-cut concepts that are taught in school and stuff. This is very different. This dynamic concept is a very uniquely Scientology thing. I haven't found anything else in other philosophies quite exactly like it.
It's not the 10 Commandments.
No, it's definitely not the commandments. It's not. The dynamics are not rules. The dynamics are supposed to be a categorization of life.
Well, what I meant by it's not the 10 Commandments is it's not as clear cut or as clear as most of the 10 Commandments are.
No, it's not.
So, thou shalt not steal. That's clear cut. Thou shalt not rape. Thou shalt not murder. Those are clear cut rules. Whereas the dynamics of Scientology are, so broad and so it's this, but only if this, only if that. It's not clear cut. The dynamics are not just clear cut. I mean, when you talk about the second dynamic as being, sex and family, on their sites it says creativity. So that's, so that's even a mess up. In Scientology, it is sex and family. Yeah. Where on their sites it says creativity. So what is it? It's not clear cut. It's not, this is what it is. So for me, it's like if Scientology is all about what Hubbard said, why is it different on their site compared to what it is and what Scientologists know it is?
Well, it's not. Scientologists do think it's creativity too. I was just trying to point out a little bit of minutia there that's a definition that emerged after Hubbard died. So it's just kind of one of those little, little spinny things that Miscavige did, right? It reconciles well enough. I mean, creating bodies, creating things. It's just, it gets a little bit, it's like you said, it gets loosey-goosey. But I want to be clear that Scientologists aren't running around right now going, "Oh, wow, I'm so confused about this." They're not. They're very, very sure they understand this very well.
Mm-hmm. They have to know it very well before they can actually move on.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, so the sixth dynamic is a physical universe.
Yep. The entire.
Do you want to explain that?
Everything you see, experience, feel, touch, ever related to in any way, that's your sixth dynamic. This stuff.
Okay, so it's basically everything, all the way from the Big Bang, if you want to call it, all the way up until now.
Yeah.
Everything created from everything that formed from that point up until now. Everything from atoms up until your desk.
If it's physical in nature, and according to Scientology, this means it would be made up of matter, energy, space, and time. Mm-hmm. If it has those component parts, it is a part of the sixth dynamic. That's what that's all about. And no one ever talks about the sixth dynamic in Scientology. It's very esoteric.
Is there a reason why?
It's just not. It just doesn't come up.
Okay.
It's not talked about. It's it's your stuff. It's your mess. It's the physical universe. They don't talk about things that at that level very often, because Scientologists are much more involved in and interested in spiritual matters and spirituality.
Okay. That does, which is the seventh dynamic, which is Correct. The spiritual dynamic.
That's right.
So basically, when it comes to the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics, basically life form, the fifth and sixth dynamic is kind of glossed over.
A bit. The way you would use it in a calculation of ethics would be like, for example, if you were trying to make a decision about whether to give over money to Scientology that you were going to use to make a down payment on a new house, you would be comparing your third dynamic to your sixth dynamic. Because your house would be, your house would be a possession that you own. So it could be a first dynamic thing too, from that point of view. But more broadly, it's it's matter, energy, space, time, right? So it's going to be a sixth dynamic sort of thing. So that's the kind of thing where that might come up. But I'm already explaining it in detail in a way that Scientologists wouldn't really think about it that way. They just don't think about this stuff that deeply.
Yeah. So just for interest's sake, the seventh dynamic is spiritual dynamic. The urge to survive as spiritual beings, or the urge for life itself to survive. Anything spiritual with or without identity. would come under the heading of the seventh dynamic. It includes one's beingness. I've never heard that word before, but okay. The ability to create, the ability to cause survival or to survive, the ability to destroy or pretend to be destroyed. A subheading of this dynamic is ideas and concepts and the desire to survive through these. The seventh dynamic is life source.
Yep.
This is separate from the physical universe and is the source of life itself. Thus, there is an effort for survival of self soul. So basically what they're talking about is the soul.
Yeah,
Thetans.
That's right. That's exactly what they're talking about.
Thetans for if you're a Scientologist.
And they're differentiating it from the first dynamic, which is your body, your temporary body identity, the things of your life, the activities of your immediate life, right? The things that just you, yourself, and you. That's your first dynamic. But the spiritual aspect, the spirituality, the existence of you as a spirit, that's more seventh dynamic.
Okay, so now I have a couple of questions just on that itself. Now, I just want to clear up one more thing that I need to understand. You talk the Scientologists talk about thetans, and then you get BTs, which is a body thetan. What is the difference in that?
There isn't anything. The difference is state of condition, not what it is.
Okay.
A body thetan is a thetan.
Okay, so what I understand, then the thetans that attach themselves to you at birth are the little spirits that many spirits that attach themselves to you that will cause depression, that will cause your illnesses, you'll cause this, to cause those problems. And then when you get to the state of clear, you've gotten rid of all of those thetans.
No, that's not true. That's not how it works.
Okay. Will you clear that up then, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, body thetans are addressed on the OT levels.
That's why I'm confused.
Clear, which is it's higher than clear. Clear is the first dynamic. You yourself and you are cleared up. The big reveal of the OT levels, the big spoiler alert on the OT levels, is you get to clear and you think, okay, I'm all cleared now. I've got all that crap from my past all gone. It's no longer part of me. All that stress, all that trauma, all those bad things that happened to me, that's all cleared away.
And so just to be clear, it's not just in this lifetime, it's in all your other lifetimes that Scientology says that you've had. So you've cleared yourself from this lifetime and the millions of lifetimes that you've had in the past. So you've cleared up those car crashes, you've cleared up that wagon crash that you had, that stabbing you had with a sword. You've cleared up, all of those instances in your life that have caused you to be mentally unstable or sick or whatever. They don't believe in depression, just so you know. They don't. They don't believe in any mental illness at all. So anxiety, you don't have it. You just have a thetan that's attached itself to your body that you need to clear.
Yeah, that's where we get into the BTs, right? Because the state of clear is all the way up to, it's about halfway along the bridge, right? The big surprise, and this is all confidential material. I mean, Scientologists don't generally know this until they get there. The big reveal on the OT levels is, surprise, it's not just you. You're not alone. You're not just you and your body and your mind. That's not that. There's more to the picture than that. And the more that Hubbard talks about are the body thetans, where other spiritual entities, thetans, who are so messed up, they're so unconscious, they're so screwed up in the head because of their stress and trauma that they're not even up to having their own body. They just glom onto yours. And there's thousands of them. Thousands and thousands of them glommed onto you. And you got to get rid of them.
So if you
the way you think, and they affect your attitude about things. And up until the point that you get to clear, Hubbard says, you're not aware enough to be able to deal with those thetans because you're still dealing with your own crap. So they don't tell you about the body thetans. Hubbard keeps this all on the DL. This is all confidential. No one at the lower levels of Scientology knows a damn thing about body thetans. It's the biggest secret in Scientology. Of course, it's revealed on South Park, but Scientologists don't watch South Park, right? For this exact reason. They don't want to know these secrets until they think they're ready to receive the received wisdom of the secrets. And you're supposed to get above the level of clear before you're ready for it. So that's how that works.
So when you're clear, when you reach clear, you're actually not really clear.
Precisely. You're only clear on the first dynamic. You
Okay.
Clear the rest of the dynamics, see?
So yourself, your body is clear, but your spirit is not clear.
Correct.
So
your own reactive mind is gone. But look at all these other reactive minds that are glommed onto you that all these thetans are carrying around, the body thetans.
So now you got to clear the body, the thetans that have attached themselves to you. But you're supposed to have gotten rid of those when you got to clear.
Well, you got rid of your own reactive mind. You didn't get theirs. They've all got their own reactive minds. All those thousands of thetans that are glommed onto you, they have their own reactive minds. And you're not going to necessarily clear them of their reactive mind, but you're going to wake them up and you're going to snap them to, and you're going to get them in enough shape that they can go off and get their own body. And and you're helping them. You're
okay, so this is also fascinating to me because I never understood this. And for me, it's like when they say clear, you've gotten rid of the thetans from your body, but it's not. You're just clearing your own reactive mind. That's what they mean by clear.
Yes.
So then, I feel like I'm so excited about this stuff.
Yeah, you're getting it. Right.
And then when you get to clear, you find out that, hang on, you didn't clear yourself of the thetans. You've just cleared your own reactive mind. So you got to clear the reactive minds of the thetans attached to you so they can go off and find their own body. Correct. So when Anne talks about in going clear, she talks about swords attached to herself, and she's got to sort out these thetans that were attached to her body. She says she was clear. She doesn't understand she was clear. And Hubbard kept telling her she needs more auditing.
Yep.
And that's when she fell into a deep state of depression because she thought she was clear.
Correct.
And that's from when Scientology really screws up your mind. After clear, you really get screwed over.
Correct.
In your mind.
Yes.
Wow. Ding.
We have had the ability. That's exactly right. And let me add remember I said it's all confidential.
Yes.
You don't know. Here you are. You're Joe Scientologist. You're Sally Scientologist. You're going up the bridge. All you are being told, get to clear, get to clear, get to clear. You got to get clear. You got to get rid of your reactive mind. The reactive mind is the sole thing that is causing the downfall of mankind. It's the sole reason you have problems. It's the sole problem you have is your reactive mind. We just got to get rid of it. You'll be clear and you won't get sick anymore and you won't have stresses anymore, and you'll still have problems, but you'll be able to deal with them from a level that is way higher than where you're at right now. This is what they tell you the entire time, and you get to clear. You've paid, $100,000 worth of auditing or something just to get to that level. Mm-hmm. It takes you a few hundred hours of auditing, which takes you months or years to get through. Mm-hmm. And you get to clear, and they say, okay, here's your certificate. You no longer have your own reactive mind. Don't you feel wonderful? Yeah, I feel great. And I got to this place in Scientology. So I did go through this process. Mm-hmm. And you feel wonderful. You feel cleared. You feel like you're ready to take on the entire world. And then you're like, but what's on these OT levels? There's 8 of these OT levels. What is that all about? And no one knows because no one will tell you because it's all super, super secret, confidential, hush, hush. So you have to sign documents and bonds, and you have to get more auditing and pay more money just to get onto the OT levels. And you finally hit the first OT level, and then the second one, and then the third one. And it's the third one where they unload all this shit on you about body thetans.
And Xenu.
Yeah, Xenu, that's right. And you get the whole South Park story. And you get told that Xenu exists, but Xenu's not important. What's important is the body thetans.
Yes.
And you now find out on OT3, the big secret reveal is, yeah, clear was just a stepping stone, pal. That was just the first step.
Yeah.
You got so much more to deal with because guess what? You got body thetans, and you're going to have to telepathically contact and rehabilitate and release every one of them. And there's thousands of them.
Now, the question with that is, if you release one, they go and attach themselves to some other body. Is that thetan clear now?
No.
And now the person has to clear their reactive mind, and then they are, Joe Smo at top of the level kind of, OT8 kind of thing, because they've got to clear thetan. So now why do they have to, when they get to the OT level, why do they have to clear that thetan again?
Well, the theory is that you wouldn't have to clear them again. Once you contact, rehabilitate, and release them, they're awake. They're not a body thetan anymore. Now they're just like you. They're just a thetan.
Okay.
That's the whole point, right? Is you are actually helping them. And they're not going to just go glom onto some other body. They're going to go get their own body now. Or they're going to flit off and go do whatever they're going to do. But they're no longer stuck to you. That's the most important part. They're not affecting you anymore. They're not telepathically like screwing with your head. So that's the and you think as a Scientologist, I'm helping this little baby thetan out, this little body thetan out, and I'm helping him along so he can go get a life.
So basically, once you've cleared a body thetan, they basically kind of grow skin and they're a human being kind of thing.
Well, they go get their own body is what they do.
Okay.
They go to the hospital and pick up a baby. You don't grow skin. You just go pick up a baby body.
Okay, I see.
That's how it.
But a baby is now born with a reactive mind, so the baby's got to clear their reactive mind. And if the thetan is clear, then they don't have to worry about that thetan. They just have to worry about all the millions of other thetans that attach themselves to them. Exactly.
And Hubbard apparently there were 76 million years ago when this all went down here on Earth in Tegiak, there were billions and trillions of souls, of entities brought to Earth. So this is a limitless supply. That anybody who thinks, if you start doing the math, you start thinking, oh my God, there's 9 billion people on the planet and every one of them has, thousands of body thetans. How's this possible? Well, it's possible because, there are trillions and trillions of thetans that are brought here and subjugated and made into this deplorable, degraded state where they're stuck and they can't even have a body. They just get to glom onto yours.
Yes. And I just want to point out something very funny as to how thetans were thetans were picked to come to this planet through tax auditing.
Yeah.
Of all things, on a planet trillions of miles away, tax auditing. The one thing that L. Ron Hubbard didn't want to himself, he pushed onto his made up reason for why thetans are on this planet is tax auditing.
Yeah.
That makes absolutely.
It's classic.
When I heard that on Going Clear, tax auditing, I'm like, what? What? That to me, I think that was more mind blowing to me than anything else. Is for tax auditing. You're tax auditing trillions of people or aliens, tax auditing. Don't you think they'd be a lot more further on in finances if they had it than tax auditing?
Hubbard was simple Simon in his thinking. He had the things that he was very vindictive about, and taxes were one of them. He hated being taxed.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just wove that into his mythology.
And this is why I don't understand.
It's kindergarten level stupid. I mean, it's so dumb. The cosmology of Scientology is complicated and involved, but ultimately stupid. It's inconsistent. It doesn't integrate well. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And when you but you got to know a lot of shit before you start putting it all together. And that's that's the burden of spending decades in this group is I did immerse myself in all of that. Right. And it's crazy. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really add up to a hill of beans. There's not really a whole lot of truth there.
Yeah.
And especially in the cosmology and as your commenters have noted, right? It's a great scam. You get to one level and then surprise, there's a whole nother pile of crap you got to deal with. And it's not like people get to this OT3 level where they find all this crap out and then go, oh, that makes sense. A whole bunch of people get to this level and just go, are you out of your fucking mind? And they leave and they're not Scientologists anymore. That happens. So don't think everybody who gets to this just buys into it, because it doesn't work that way. But also remember, they have a high rate of retention on this level and on this material because you've already invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, years of your time. I mean, you are in it to win it. And that's what keeps most people going all the way up to OT8. And by the time they're OT8, they supposedly have now gotten rid of all of the body thetans. That's the level where it's all gone. It's just you left.
Yes.
And that's when the OT8 truth revealed is given to you, where, hey, guess what? Not only was there all the clear stuff you had to deal with and all the body thetan stuff you had to deal with, and you had to give us hundreds of thousands of dollars and all this other crap, but guess what? You made it all up. None of it was actually real. And that's the big deal of OT8.
And I think when Paul Haggis explained when he got to OT3, he's like, maybe the trick, the whole thing behind is we're not supposed to believe in this, and if we believe in it, we get kicked out.
That's right. It's a loyalty test. That's right.
So
wondered, yeah, because it's ridiculous. It sounds so stupid. You're like, what? Is this for real? But believe me, the supervisors that when you're reading this material for the first time, when they reveal it to you, they are watching you very carefully. There's literally a course room supervisor. You're in a locked room, okay? You're in a confidential space. You've been building to this moment for years. I mean, they really ramp up internally. They don't tell you about the body thetans, but the mystique surrounding OT3 is, I mean, I was just obsessed with it when I was a Scientologist, and they won't tell you anything about it until you get into that room. So you finally get in there and they give you the course pack and you open it up and you don't know what to expect. You have no idea what's coming. And then they hit you with this stuff and you're like, oh my God, really? And the course room supervisor is there on you like a hawk. Like if you have any question, any concern, any problem with this, their job is to sort it out with you so that you walk out of that room agreeing that Xenu was real, body thetans are real, and you're now on the path to get rid of them. Yeah. So
can you remind us which level did you get up to?
I got to clear.
You got to clear, so you didn't get the OT levels.
I did not. No. When I was in Scientology, I did not do the OT levels. My parents did. I administered people getting onto the OT levels. I was pretty close. But I did not get to them. I read everything about them after I got out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so everything you know now is from other Scientologists explaining and what you've read online and such.
That's right. I've read every piece of material that Hubbard wrote that's publicly available on the internet. I mean, if it's on there, if it's out there, I've read it. And I've talked with tens of OTs at this point, both my parents, everybody who was on the Aftermath show. I've talked to all of them about, or almost all of them, about their experiences on the OT levels and what, all the way up to the OT8s.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people ask me to get Leah Remini on my show.
Yeah,
I'm like, she's a busy lady. I don't think I could get her on.
Yeah, she's awesome.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. I really don't. Okay, so the last dynamic is infinity.
Yeah, big one, the 8th dynamic.
Just the word infinity to me, it's like there's a lot in this dynamic as a whole because it's the biggest circle.
Yep.
Infinity. So the definition that they've put on the site is the 8th dynamic also is commonly called God, the supreme being or creator, but it is correctly defined as infinity. It actually embraces the allness of all. That is why, according to L. Ron Hubbard, when the 7th dynamic is reached in its entirety, all will only then discover the true 8th dynamic.
Yep.
So this is why when Miscavige talks about to infinity, or to infinity, we're here and we're going on our way to infinity. It's Can you explain this to us? What it actually means, infinity? Like infinity could mean so much.
Well, then that's exactly the point, right? Is Hubbard uses it in a very slipshod manner and gave this dynamic hardly any oxygen. There's very, very little about the 8th dynamic in Scientology. What you read is most of it. He talks about it in a couple lectures in a couple places, but really it's more of a catch-all. Okay, if it's not in the first 7 dynamics, it's the 8th dynamic, right? It's infinity. It's everything that's not in the first 7. Excuse me. And this is where Scientologists get some kind of interesting and confusing ideas about God. Because basically you can roll your own concept. Hubbard doesn't get into God. He only says that the Christian God is a myth. He doesn't say God's a myth. He says the Christian God is. He says Jesus and Christianity and Catholicism and all of it, all the trappings, angels, demons, cherubs, all of this stuff is just symbols and implants. Brainwashing is basically what he kind of says. And so, yeah, so he's really not down with religion at all as far as Christianity goes. He hated it. But he doesn't say anywhere that God doesn't exist. And in fact, he says exactly what you read there about how, you'll realize the actual true nature of God and infinity in the 8th dynamic when you clear the first 7 dynamics. So it's just basically a great big, let's just write it off and not talk about it too much. And eventually you'll figure it out for yourself. And that's kind of how the 8th dynamic is dealt with in Scientology. Yeah.
So basically, as Clive Wall says, it's a sunken cost fallacy.
The business of getting all the way to OT8 and sticking in with it. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was talking about earlier. Yeah. Because you've invested so much, you have to stick with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So infinity is basically just a God, the supreme being.
It's not even an entity. See, that's the thing. It's everything. It's the allness of all. So yes, that is in some people's minds, that means God, but it's more and less than that in Scientology, because it's a bit of a loosey-goosey concept, but it's not just a concept of a supreme being or a creator. That's not all there is to the 8th dynamic. And in fact, I need to clarify, here's probably a good place to do it. Pretty much what you or our listeners are thinking of as God, that's a Thetan. In Scientology, you as a spiritual entity, once you are fully rehabilitated and you don't have a reactive mind or any of these body thetans or any of this other crap affecting you, you're God. That's who you really are. You're that powerful. Everything around us, all the mess, all the matter, energy, space, and time, and all that, we're making that. You, me, everybody. Our collective agreement that all this crap exists is what makes it exist. So the ultimate truth in Scientology, with a capital T, is the Thetan. The Thetan is the ultimate truth. It's the only thing that's really real. Everything else is just kind of things we agree are real, and so they're real. They don't really have any more reality than an artificial computer construct, right? In an ultimate sense, right? So, Scientologists aren't walking around, walking down the street going, oh, that car's not real. I mean, they can see a car and they know it's going to hit them and kill them if they get in front of it. That it's not that dumb, right? But it is like, kind of airy-fairy kind of thinking. And that's where the Scientology thinking goes. So that's why I can say with such confidence that the eighth dynamic is not God, because in Scientology, you're God. As we understand the term and use it. You see what I mean? So that's the differentiation there.
Okay, so once you have cleared all the first 7 dynamics, by then you should be at OT8.
Yes.
Okay, so once you've cleared OT8, you should basically be a god. You
Correct.
should have superpowers. You shouldn't wear glasses. You can hear perfectly.
Oh, that's the assumption, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately, no OT8s have actually manifested that. And here's the new excuse on this one, okay? Because as somebody commented here, right? It's a scam, drawing people in to extract their cash. Yes. Once you get to OT8, you're basically back to being what's called, or what would be thought of as, like a baby Thetan.
Okay.
And they're on the bridge to total freedom within Scientology on this chart. OT8 is not the top. OT15 is.
But there are no materials from 9 till 15.
Correct. They do not have those released. Everybody in the world of Scientology believes that L. Ron Hubbard wrote up those OT levels, and they are in a filing cabinet somewhere, and they just need to be released. And Miscavige has said, and the management of Scientology has said for many, many years, they will be released once certain targets are attained. And until those targets are attained, we can't release them because those are the instructions we have. Now, the reality is that they don't have them. They don't exist. L. Ron Hubbard never wrote them. But they're playing this game. They're playing the Scientologists, right? They have to keep dragging them along. So they make up this chart that has 15 levels on it, and they've only released 8 of them. And so the excuse is that as to why you don't have all the superpowers and you're not God yet by the time you hit OT8, and no one who hits OT8 is God. The excuse is, well, yes, but this is all the way up until now. You've just been getting rid of things. You've been stripping away stress and trauma and all this crap from your past and all the body thetans and all that. Now we've got you back to native state where you're back to being just you, yourself, and you, but you're just a little baby thetan, and we got to grow your abilities. And that's what OT levels 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 are supposed to be all about.
Basically, here's a carrot.
Exactly. You got it.
Try and catch it.
That's right. And that's how Scientology keeps you in the scam. And that's why I call it a hamster wheel to nowhere.
Yes. So basically, it's a stick attached to your back with a carrot in front of you. And the more you run, the more it's in front of you. You're never going to catch it.
Nailed it. That's exactly right. And we covered a lot more than the dynamics in this show, but this is all very, very based on the dynamics. The dynamics are a very, very important principle in Scientology, because from the dynamics spring all the rest of Scientology. It's a very fundamental concept there. And so it was just a good show to talk about that stuff and then relate it to all this other stuff that I'm trying to do here. So yeah, it's crazy.
I think maybe maybe you can disagree with me or not, but for me, I think that from the dynamics, I think the next best thing to talk about would be the bridge.
Yeah, we can talk about the bridge. Absolutely. Big subject, by the way, probably more than one episode.
Okay, so maybe we can cover from, I don't know if we should be talking this on stream, but it's fine. From getting into Scientology up until clear.
Yeah.
If it's possible.
Yeah.
If not, we can make it a three-part stream. We can talk about getting in from the personality test up until wherever we get after 2 hours, and we can carry on from there.
Yeah, we can do that. Because it's a big topic. I've done whole videos on this, and it took me, it's a big, long explanation. The bridge is complicated.
Yeah, the bridge is, the bridge is a lifetime thing that you take. And some people get there in 20 years. Some people don't even get there in 50 years because, Miscavige keeps rewriting stuff and you got to redo it. And you got to, so it's people actually never even get to clear because they got to redo different, classes and stuff like that. So, especially even the auditors, they never get to the top either because they got to Miscavige finds a mistake and they got to rewrite it and redo it. And that's another topic on its own because that's where the cash grab is. But I think the next part, I'm just trying to get through the understanding of Scientology to begin with. Mm-hmm. And in that week, we will nitpick and find the abuses within. I don't want to go straight into talking about the abuses because we need to understand Scientology first to understand how the abuses have come, how the abuses came in, where the abuses are, how it fits into the different things. So, last time we spoke about Scientology, we spoke about what it is. And we did find a lot of abuses within just what Scientology is. Mm-hmm. Now we're speaking about the dynamics, and we didn't get to a lot of the abuses within it, but we did speak about how it's...
I'd say we covered a pretty big... we could basically describe the scam. I mean, I think we covered the abuses pretty well there.
Okay, so I'm thinking...
Scam, right? I mean, we just basically outlined exactly how that works. So.
Yes. Okay, all right. So let me rephrase that. We uncovered the scam that is Scientology, just talking about the dynamics.
Exactly.
And that alone is an abuse.
That's right. And we also covered that business about how every decision is skewed because of the misprioritized third dynamic, the Scientology aspect, right? That's the foot on the scale of every decision Scientologists make. And it is a big thing. I mean, what I was describing there was not some minutia that affects a couple people. Every Scientologist ends up in that headspace, and it's not a good place to be. So that's what enables all the abuse. This is actually real fundamental stuff we were talking about today. So I was really happy with this.
I agree, and that's just I didn't want to just talk about the eighth dynamic. I mean, the 8 dynamics. Just hearsay and try and nitpick to find the abuses. I really, truly wanted to understand the 8 dynamics. And because now I understand the 8 dynamics, I finally understand how being clear works. Excellent. And that was exciting for me to actually understand it because, I mean, like I said, I've been researching Scientology for 2 to 3 years now, and I've never really understood what being a thetan or being clear and what a body thetan is. And now that you've explained it, I'm so excited about understanding it. And now when I listen to people talking about it, and now I'm actually going to re-listen or re-watch Going Clear with this new knowledge in my head. And I hope everybody's just as excited as I am, because I am freaking excited for this. I shouldn't be this excited for fucking Scientology.
I'm really glad that we got that sorted out, because and I was able to help you with that. That's great.
But I don't know. I just having this different point of view now is just exciting to me, and seeing something in a different light is to me is exciting. And I think I'm more excited that I learned something new than I am about the subject, you know.
Totally.
So thank you so much for clearing that up for me and clearing that up for anybody else that wanted to understand that subject alone. You know, just what the difference is between a thetan and a body thetan, and there is no difference, but you know, and what clear actually is.
Right.
What being clear actually is. And that to me was exciting.
Cool.
And I'm actually getting all hot now because I'm so excited.
Wow.
And it's cold here today. It's actually cold here tonight.
Wow.
But I'm sorry. This to me, I think this is one of my favorites. This is just a favorite to me now. So thank you so much for you know, clearing that up for me.
You're very welcome.
So does anybody in the chat have any questions? I know there's a lot of remarks going in, but I'm not seeing any questions, and I'm quite surprised there are no questions. I mean, a lot of people are talking about, you know, it being a scam, and it's, you know, it's just a part to empty out your bank account, and it's a sunken cost fallacy, and it's, you know, in for a penny type situation. And Mr. Andrews, he did say that he remembers the hype around dynamics. He put SP in, you know, I think he was asking what SP is, and I think it's, you know, now it's just slipped my mind. SP. What is it now?
Impressive person.
Impressive person. You see, I'm so excited. I'm forgetting everything else.
All right, fair enough. It looks like your commenters are not down with religion, and I am definitely on that page. So, I think
we're in the community that this is a skeptic community. So,
yeah. I'm down with that.
And I think a lot of them would be interested in your Chris Shelton channel, which covers a lot more of the skeptical side of things than your critical clips, which covers a lot more about Scientology. I know it does cover a lot of critical thinking, but maybe because I pick out the ones that are more Scientology based. Maybe that's why I think it's.
Yeah, I mean, the critical clips is meant to be, you know, answer question or question answer, right? Question answer, question answer. And most questions I get are about Scientology. So that channel is chock-a-block full of stuff on Scientology. And you'll see, and you'll continue to see that as it rolls forward. But yeah, my main channel definitely has other Scientology related stuff. I mean, we did a podcast today about indoctrination and radicalization.
Oh, that is okay. I think I'm sorry. I had a busy day today. I didn't get a chance to. I mean, I was even late to this. Chris was even gracious enough to be patient with me. I was 15 minutes. He said, "Are we still doing this today?" I'm like, I thought it was an hour later. So thank you for being so patient with me while I set up everything. It was my misunderstanding, my mistake. So I do apologize for that. And thank you for being patient while I set up everything and, you know, get everything in order. And I'm hoping you'll be back next month.
Of course I will.
And I will definitely write this down that it's 11 a.m. your time, 7 p.m. my time.
Excellent.
Okay. So questionable spelling. Oh, I see what he means. Okay.
Yeah. No worries.
I see what he means. All right. He was worried about the spelling of Dynetics. That's what he was on about.
Got it.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Sorry about that, Mr. Andrews. Okay, so I see that they don't have any questions. Just basically, we don't like religion sort of exactly. Comments. I see just Ivy's popped in. I did see Clive Wells pop in. Demon Orb has popped in. Edward, Carl Edwards was here. NA was here. Jane was here. So there's a few faces that I know. Actually, I know all these names. And I thank you everyone for coming and for popping in. And I'm sorry I was late, but like I said, I had a busy day. I had assumed it was an hour later than what it actually was. But the Scientology EndGame will be 7 p.m. CAT. You can use a calculator to figure out what time it is in your zone. I know it's 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. That I know now.
Okay, well, anyway, fair enough.
And as well, it will change when you guys go into when you change the clocks. We don't do it yet, so when you change the clocks. What is it called?
Oh, yeah, we just
daylight savings. Yeah,
we had daylight saving just a couple weeks ago, so it's going to be a couple months until we change the time again.
And that's probably why I got confused with your time.
I totally get that. Time zones are very confusing.
All right.
You got to have some sympathy for us content creators. I mean, when we're doing interviews across the world with each other, the time zones are damn confusing.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. All right. So do you have anything coming up this week on your channel that you would like to shout out?
I just encourage folks to check out the podcast I posted this week on the indoctrination and radicalization stuff that posted today, and Q&A show tomorrow.
Awesome. Everything will be in the description. So links to Chris's main channel, his Critical Clips channel, his Twitter is also there. Chris at least tweets at least about 5 to 10 times a day.
Yeah, sometimes I'm on Twitter and sometimes I'm not. Yeah.
So if it wasn't for Chris, my phone would last a little bit longer, but I don't. But the reason why I have you as a notification, because there are a lot of times where you actually post something that I agree with. American politics is not something I follow a lot because I know it affects me as a third world country, but I don't really care at this point in time because it's just so up in the air right now. I don't know what's really going on. So I follow your more stuff that I probably will find agreement with in terms of life itself and how to live life and how your perception of life and so on. So I follow those more than your
I'm trying to not comment so much on politics these days. Now that Trump's gone, there's a lot less cause to, but sometimes I still get triggered. I don't know what to say. It happens.
It's all good. So guys, everything that you need to know about Chris is in the description below, from YouTube to Twitter. Mine as well. My Twitch is also in there. So if you want to come hang out while I game now on Twitch, I'm now playing annual tournaments, so I'm shooting the shit out of people as a way to relieve stress, which is awesome. But anyway, so thank you, Chris, again for coming on. Again, sorry about the time zones, but it's fine. We've sorted that out now. So thank you, everyone, for coming in. Thank you, Chris, for popping in and discussing the 8 dynamics with us and helping us understand the 8 dynamics. And our next show will be on the 24th of April, 7 p.m. my time, 11 a.m. your time.
Beautiful.
Got to get that clear. Okay, so thanks, guys, everyone, for coming in. I appreciate every single one of you for being here. And we will see you in a month's time with another Scientology Endgame. Have a good evening, guys. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.